swear or affirm the testimony that you will give today in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Please take a seat, spell your first and last name.
First name is Daniel. Last name Saunders.
Where do you work?
The University of Georgia Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
I worked there since 2008.
What are your duties and responsibilities there?
My current duties are I'm assigned as the lieutenant of the administration division.
At one point, were you over the crime scene section?
Yes, I was a sergeant in investigations, and one of my duties was to process crime scenes.
Tell the court a little bit about your training for processing of crime scenes.
Throughout my time at the University of Georgia Police Department, I've taken classes in crime scene investigations, evidentiary management, crime scene tech, basic photography, latent print development, and sexual assault investigations.
And how long have you been a law enforcement officer?
Since 2008.
How many crime scenes have you had the opportunity to process over your career?
I don't have an exact number, but several.
Okay. Were you working on February 22nd of 2024?
Yes.
What were you doing that day?
I was working in investigations that day.
And what, if anything, occurred that day that brings you to court today?
On the 22nd, we had a call go out for a non-accidental death at the intramural fields. I responded to that area to help process the scene.
Were you the lead assigned to process the scene, or did you all call another agency to assist you?
I initially headed that way, and we hadn't called another agency at that time. While I was taking pictures of the scene, I was informed that the GBI was called to come in and process the scene, so I stood by at that point.
When you entered the scene that day, how did you enter the scene?
I went in after crime scene specialist Stewart came in. I kind of followed her as she was taking pictures of the overall area.
At some point, did you observe a item that was not actually within the crime scene, but kind of close to it?
Yes. On the way to where the actual scene itself was, I do remember seeing a white styrofoam cup that was right off the main road leading toward where the scene was. Stood out because it's typically a very clean area right there at the University of Georgia at the intramural fields. So I made a mental note of that at that point.
And did you eventually photograph that cup and collect it?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibits 116 through 120. I'll ask that you look at those for me. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
What are they?
These are photos that I took of the cup where it stood when I first saw it.
And do they fairly and accurately depict the cup as you saw it on February 22nd of 2024?
Yes.
State would move to admit 116 to 120.
No objection.
They're admitted.
About what time did you arrive on scene, and about what time did you observe that cup?
My arrival on scene was right around 12:57 is when we arrived at the intramural fields.
And when did you observe that cup?
Immediately upon arrival.
Your Honor, could you toggle back over to the Elmo? Thank you. With the court's permission, may I publish 116?
Yes.
Through 120. 116, tell us what we're looking at here.
This is the main route into the intramural field area. There's a large rock on the left. The road that continues past the rock, past that and to the left is where the actual crime scene was.
Okay, so where my pin is, you see that truck?
Yes.
Is that in the direction of where the crime scene was?
Yes.
Okay. And to get from where this rock is to where the crime scene is, how do you get there?
The primary route, if you're on a vehicle, it's going to be going directly past that cup toward where the vehicle is, and then the road curves off to the left.
State's Exhibit 117, what does that depict?
That's a closer up image of the rock in the cup.
118, what does that depict?
It's the same thing. It's just moving in a little bit closer to where the cup and the rock are.
And do you show us where the cup is using the pointer in 118? Up, you gotta go up behind you. You can't.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
It's in the middle of 118?
Yeah.
119.
Right here.
In the middle, okay. You can have a seat again. And then State's Exhibit 120. What direction is that?
This is going to be facing toward the east, back toward the family housing area.
And do you see the cup in State's 120?
No, not in this image.
Is
Yes,
it-
I do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, is it hard to see because of the glare?
Yeah.
All right.
Right here.
All right, so you pointed out in the right side of the photograph. In this photograph, where is the university housing that you mentioned?
University housing is right here on the hill behind the trees.
Okay, thank you. So, did you collect this cup?
Yes.
And when you went to collect the cup, did it have anything in it or was it empty?
It had a liquid inside of the cup.
And did you smell the liquid?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did you smell?
It smelled like alcohol.
Do you have gloves?
Yes.
You could put those on, please. I'm gonna hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, the State's Exhibit 148. And ask that you look inside of that, and I'll ask you questions.
Yeah.
Do you recognize State's 148?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the cup that I collected. That was featured in that photograph.
And did the cup that you collect also have a straw with it?
Yes.
And is this cup in the same or substantially same condition as it was when you collected it?
Yes.
And do you see the straw and the top to the cup as well in there?
Yes.
State would move to admit State's 148, request permission to publish. No objection.
148 submitted, you may. Okay.
Prior to collecting the cup, what did you do with the liquid?
I poured it in a separate container and sealed that, separate from the cup.
State's Exhibit, I'm gonna approach you with what is marked State's Exhibit 154. Do you recognize State's 154?
Yes.
What is it?
That is a map of the intramural field where the cup was and also where the crime scene was.
And would using State's 154 aid you in your testimony before the court today to show him the relationship between the cup and the crime scene?
Yes.
And is this an accurate overhead image of the crime scene from that day? I mean, as it was depicted that day?
Yes.
State would move to admit 154, request permission to publish.
I don't have objection B, we did bring them on for purpose.
Submitted for that purpose.
I'm gonna print out the. Lieutenant, if you could use your pointer again and show us here what we're looking at, can the court and counsel see, please?
Okay. This is the location of where that cup was, right here next to the rock. And this road is the main road that I took to the crime scene, which then loops around and comes back through here, and this is where the scene itself was.
And in states 154, do you also see building S?
Yes, right here.
And is it marked building S?
Yes.
And then also, did you respond to a call later that evening to an apartment complex named Argo, sometimes called Raintree, but it's at 2084 Millage Avenue?
I did, yes.
And do you see that also in States Exhibit 154?
Yes, right. Right here.
At the bottom?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, you can have a seat. In addition to collecting that cup, did you assist Special Agent Stewart in processing the scene?
Yes.
Tell us how you assisted her.
I assisted her by collecting the actual items that were on the scene, by helping her physically put them in the bags, the collection bags. Also, when I collected the cup, and when we found the victim's cell phone, I collected, or Agent Stewart collected that, and then I processed it.
Also, the items that were collected by yourself and Special Agent Stewart that day, were they sealed by you?
Yes.
And were they dropped off at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab for processing sealed?
Yes.
Did you collect the Garmin watch off of Laken Riley's body?
I did.
And did you also bag her hands on the scene?
I did.
How did you bag her hands on scene?
Using CSS Stewart provided me with the handbags that she had, and I placed those on the victim's hands.
I'm going to hand you two items. The first one is States Exhibit 146. And the next one is States Exhibit 153. I'm going to ask you about 146 first. Do you recognize 146?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the bag that I placed the victim's watch in after I removed it from her wrist.
And you open up an inside,
Yep.
you see inside the bag?
Yes.
And what's inside the bag?
The Garmin Forerunner watch.
And is it in the same or substantially same condition as it was when you collected it?
Yes.
And when you arrived on scene, was the watch still running?
Yes.
State would move to admit States Exhibit 146.
No objection.
146 submitted.
May I publish?
Yes.
And there's 153. I'm going to ask you about 153. But before I do that, tell us about when the phone was found. How did you physically process the phone?
Using a sterile brush and sterile black powder that Agent Stewart had in her crime scene vehicle.
Okay, and did y'all do that together as well?
She photographed the item prior to me processing it. After she was done photographing it, I physically processed the phone itself.
Okay. And were you able to lift a latent lift off of that phone?
Yes.
If you could look at States 153, what is that?
This is the latent lift from that phone.
The state would move to admit States 153.
No objection.
153 is admitted.
And I want to ask you, did you note on the lift card where on the phone you found that impression? Or developed that impression? Or saw that impression?
Yes, there's a drawing on the front of the print card itself on where that print came from.
All right, is that the mark that you have there? Is that an X?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I'll publish that to the court. So it's this drawing here where it says sketch and an X.
Correct.
That's where you saw the impression.
Correct.
And this latent lift card and Special Agent Stewart's photographs of the latent lift that you all saw on Laken Riley's phone on the 22nd day of February 2024 What did you do with those items? What happened to the photographs and the latent lift card itself?
Those were provided to Tim Stewart with Athens Clarke County Police Department.
And what was the purpose of providing those items to him?
He is the local APHIS fingerprint examiner, so those were provided for him for comparison purposes and to run on APHIS.
I want to direct your attention to later on that evening. About what time did you leave the crime scene?
We left, the crime scene work was actually complete around 8:45. We left closer to 9 o'clock.
When you left, where did you go?
We were headed back to the station. On the way there, I received notification that Officer Davis with the Athens Clarke County Police Department had found some items, a jacket that may have been related to our crime scene.
So did you respond to that location?
Yes.
When you were there, what, if anything, did you collect or see?
While we were on the scene, I collected, I handed an evidence bag to Officer Davis with Athens Clarke County Police Department. He put a blue jacket inside of that bag, and we also collected a set of gloves that were found in a bush nearby where the dumpster was.
I am going to hand you what has been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibits 121 and 130, through 130, not and, but through 121 through 130. Ask that you look at those photographs. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
What are they?
These are pictures of what I took that evening of the dumpster that the jacket was found in, the jacket itself that was in the dumpster, and then the gloves that were found in the bush, the relation of the bush to where the dumpster is.
And do they fairly and accurately pick those items as you saw them on that evening?
Yes.
The state would move to admit 121 through 130.
No objection.
121 through 130.
And request permission to publish.
No.
121, what are we looking at there?
The dumpster that the jacket was found in is right here.
Okay, can we dim the lights again? Because now the glare is back. Thank you.
This dumpster right here is where the jacket was found in.
And that's the one closest to the patrol car?
Correct.
And whose patrol car is that? I mean, as far as what agency?
Athens Clarke County Police Department.
Thank you. 122, what are we looking at there?
It's another image of the dumpster just from another angle.
123,
A closer up image of the dumpster itself.
124,
This is an overhead view inside the dumpster. You can see the edge of the dumpster where I held the camera up and photographed the jacket that was found inside.
125,
And it's a closer up image of the jacket itself, just with a little bit better lighting.
all right, and do you see a button on that jacket?
Yes.
Can you point that out? And on your photograph, do you see anything around the button?
Yes, there was hair around this button.
126,
It's the jacket itself again.
and so you said there were some bushes,
Correct.
and you went and looked there and recovered some gloves. What brought you to do that? How did you go to go look in some bushes?
As we were searching the area around where the jacket was found, we had noticed that there was a security camera in one of the apartments nearby. We spoke with a resident of that apartment, and he allowed us to view his camera footage from that security camera that was pointed at the dumpster. After watching that security footage, we noticed that somebody had put an item in that dumpster, and then after they put the item in the dumpster, they walked toward the bush and appeared to put something in the bush as well. So we checked that specific area of the bush where you could see somebody put something in there.
And what, if anything, did you see in the bush when you checked it?
Some gloves that were wrapped up together.
What kind of gloves?
They were black, black gloves.
Cloth or not cloth?
No, not cloth.
States 130, what does that depict?
That is a picture of the bush in relation to where the dumpster itself was.
Can you tell us which bush you went into? Because I see two in States 130.
Yes, I believe it was this one, but one of the other pictures should show it from a different angle as well.
Okay, States 127.
Yeah, it was this bush right here.
And when you say this one, is that the one in the middle? Or
Correct,
the
the one in the middle. It was found right here in these branches.
States 129.
That's how the gloves were situated. We hadn't touched them or anything at this point. This is how they were found in the bush.
And 128.
That's a little bit closer up or further off image of where the gloves were found in the bush.
And how many gloves were there?
I did not unravel the gloves on scene.
Okay, so what did you do with them?
They were turned into the GBI crime lab afterwards.
And did you package them before you did that?
Yes,
How did you package them?
I packaged them in a paper bag.
And same question with the jacket. When the jacket was collected, did you package it?
Yes,
And did you seal it?
yes,
Did you seal the gloves also?
I did.
And were those items delivered to the crime lab sealed?
Yes.
I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibits 147 and 149. I'm going to leave them both up here if you're going to ask them to look at 147.
Yes.
What is 147?
This is the jacket that was recovered from the dumpster.
And it has gone to the crime lab, correct?
Correct.
For testing.
Yes.
The state will move to admit state 149. 147.
Any objection?
No objection.
147 is admitted.
Published.
Yes.
And is there a hood on this jacket that I'm holding?
Yes.
One 49. First of all, do you recognize the outer packaging, which is in marked 149?
Yes.
And inside 149 is what? Just describe what it is.
Yep. 3 individual envelopes inside there.
And do you see a crime lab number associated with those?
Yes.
Okay. And could you just read that out for the record?
It's 2024-1005-107.
Okay. And those three items, go ahead and look inside. And do you recognize those three items inside the envelopes?
Those are 3 black gloves.
And the statement moved to admit states 149.
No objection.
149 submitted.
And may I publish, Your Honor? Just gonna publish one of these out of 149. In front of you also is 145. So I'm going to ask you, after the collection of the gloves and the jacket, did you have the opportunity to also assist Special Agent Stewart in processing of the defendant in this case and collecting a sample of his DNA and photographing him?
Yes.
When did that occur?
This occurred on the 23rd.
Of what month?
The 23rd of February.
2024.
Yes.
And where did that occur?
At the Athens-Clarke County East Precinct.
And were you the person that actually physically swabbed the defendant to get a sample of his DNA?
Yes.
And was that done after obtaining first a search warrant?
Yes.
The sample of his DNA, tell the court how exactly you went about collecting it.
I collected buccal swabs using 2 sterile cotton swabs on the inside of his cheek.
Okay, and then did you label them?
Yes.
Did you seal them?
Yes.
And were they delivered to the crime lab sealed?
Yes.
The person that you swabbed that day, on the 23rd day of February, do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Would you please point to him and describe an article of clothing he's wearing?
He's wearing a blue and white checkered shirt.
May the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant. States, can you give me that evidence number again? Is that 145?
145.
Okay. Are those the swabs that you collected?
Yes.
And this time, Your Honor, the state will move to admit states 145.
No objection.
145 submitted.
Moving on to other matters that you did in this case, I want to hand you what has been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibits 131 through 139. If you could look at those for me. Recognize those?
Yes.
What are
These are pictures that I took of a bag that was seized by ACCPD from Diego Ibarra.
What day did you obtain that bag from ACCPD?
The bag was obtained from ACCPD on the 26th of February, 2024.
When you obtained from ACCPD a bag that belonged to Diego Ibarra, did you search the bag?
Yes.
Okay. And did you look at the items inside the bag?
Yes.
And did you photograph the items inside the bag?
Yes.
And do states exhibits 131 through 139 depict the photographs that you took?
Yes.
And do they fairly and accurately depict the items of Diego's bag and items inside the bag as you saw them on February 26th of 2024?
Yes.
State would move to admit 131 through 139.
No objection.
They're admitted?
And may I publish?
Yes.
And in looking through the items that belonged to Diego Ibarra, did you see any items that had any blood on it?
No.
States 131, what's that?
That's a picture of the bag.
States 134, what are those?
Those are 2 gloves that were found inside of the bag.
States 135.
The other side of those gloves that were found in the bag.
Now, are those cloth gloves or plastic gloves?
Those are cloth gloves. One of them is kind of a mix of leather type material and cloth.
And were there any blood on these items?
No.
Or was there any blood on those items?
No.
137,
That's a picture of the inside of the bag itself.
138,
That is the shoes that were inside the bag. I took those out and photographed them.
and these are just other items. Let's see, 136,
Those were found inside the bag as well.
139,
Those also found inside the bag.
133,
That was inside the bag.
132.
And that was in the bag as well.
Did you collect from the Athens Clarke County Police Department a black Adidas style hat?
Yes.
Tell us under what circumstances you collected that and when.
That was collected at the same time that I collected the bag from the Athens Clarke County Police Department. There was a search warrant that Sergeant Rabu had obtained for those items that had been taken off Diego Ibarra when he was taken into custody by ACCPD.
The black Adidas style hat, did you look at it?
When I collected it, I did not. It was already sealed in a bag from the Athens Clarke County Police Department.
And that sealed bag, did you take that sealed bag to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation?
I did.
Okay. And I'm handing you a spin mark for identification purposes at State Exhibit 151. Do you recognize your handwriting on States 151?
Yes.
So what is States 151?
This is the evidence bag that I placed the Athens Clarke County evidence bag inside of.
Okay, and what was inside the Athens Clarke County bag?
A black Adidas hat.
And was that all delivered to the crime lab sealed?
Yes.
I'm going to move to admit States 151 and link it up with another witness, Your Honor.
No objection.
It's admitted.
And States 151, do you also see that same crime lab number on States 151?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Did you also obtain a cell phone, a blue Motorola cell phone, seized from Diego Ibarra from ACCPD?
I did at the same time that I picked up the bag and the hat.
I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit 152.
Yes.
Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
What is it?
That is, this is the cell phone that was seized or that was collected from ACCPD. I then placed it inside of one of our evidence bags.
And was that the cell phone seized from Diego Ibarra on February 23rd of 2024?
Yes.
State we move to admit States 152.
No objection.
152 is admitted.
Of all the items, just globally, so I want to make sure that this was clear for the record, of all the items that you collected from the scene of Laken Riley's murder, so that would be Daniela Stewart's numbers 1 through 8, you know what I'm talking about? Her evidence markers?
Yes.
Yes. All of those items that you collected, did you seal those items yourself?
Yes.
And did you deliver those to the crime lab sealed?
Yes.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Is it Lieutenant Saunders?
Yes.
Lieutenant, you were called to the scene on February 22nd, you said around 2 o'clock p.m.?
No.
You can look at your report if you
Yeah,
need
we
to.
arrived around 12:57.
12:57. Okay. And you had initially started to process, or you were moving toward the scene to process it yourself.
I was right. Before I was notified that the GBI was on the way, I took some photographs of the overall scene.
Sure. And then when you were told GBI was sending somebody, you kind of held off until they arrived.
Correct.
And is it fair to say she took the lead on documenting the scene?
Yes.
Okay. Was there any investigative act that you took the lead on, or were you just letting her and following along behind her?
The only thing that I didn't, or that I collected without being in the presence of Agent Stewart, was the styrofoam cup
Okay.
and the jacket and the gloves later on.
Okay. Let's talk about the latent fingerprint discovered on the phone. That was later at night, around 9 o'clock. You can refer to your report.
It was later at night. It was a little bit before 9 o'clock.
And before you processed it for fingerprints, you noticed that it was the fingerprint appeared to be made with some sort of reddish substance.
There appeared to be some sort of reddish substance in the fingerprint.
Did you believe it was blood?
I wasn't sure what it was.
Okay. Was it a liquid red substance?
It appeared to be made from a liquid, yes.
Okay. So we have heard you use the term processed. What do you mean by processed?
When I say process, it can mean different things, but in this particular case, I mean using fingerprint powder and a fingerprint brush to make the print itself stand out.
And what is that fingerprint powder made of?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. When you use fingerprint powder on a substance, is that substance then able to be chemically examined, or does the fingerprint powder kind of ruin whatever chemical substance was there before?
So I know the fingerprint powder and the brush we use is DNA free. As far as chemical processing afterwards, I can't say whether or not that would prevent anything like that from being done.
Was the surface of the phone ever tested for DNA?
The surface of the phone was swabbed.
And were those swabs sent off for DNA testing?
They were given to the GBI crime lab.
And was that done after the latent print was processed?
Yes.
I had a question. I noticed that both you and Ms. Ross are putting on gloves to handle the evidence today. Can you explain why that is?
We change our gloves between handling different items of evidence to avoid any sort of cross-contamination with the DNA.
Because DNA can be transferred by as simple as a touch, is that right?
I can't say how much of a touch it takes to transfer DNA.
But your testimony a moment ago was that you put on gloves to avoid transferring that DNA.
Correct.
When we looked at States 147, the blue jacket, part of the jacket was actually kind of missing. You could see the white lining inside the jacket.
Correct.
That was a cutting that wasn't there when you photographed the jacket in the dumpster. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay, so that was done later at the crime lab.
Correct.
And so I just wanted to clarify that's not the tear you guys are talking about when you see the dumpster in the video.
The large cutting is not the tear that we saw in the dumpster.
Okay. So one thing that it was hard for us to see in here was the condition of the gloves. Now, you were present when defense counsel looked at the gloves a couple weeks ago or last week.
Yes.
Right? Okay. And we actually kind of like spread them out on the table. And the gloves, they're not latex gloves, right?
I'm not sure what material they are.
What I mean by that is they're not the stretchery, rubbery consistence of the gloves that you and Miss Ross are
They're
wearing.
not. No, they're not like stretchy material.
They're more like, I don't know, papery, thin material.
They are thinner gloves.
Would it be consistent to say they look like food service gloves?
I've never worked in the food service industry, so I can't.
When you pull them out of the bag now, they've been kind of cut along the entire seam so that they're almost like a butterfly effect spread out.
Correct.
But in your report, you document, or you and a detective or Miss Stewart document there are some tears in the gloves. How were those documented before they were cut up for processing?
So when I collected the gloves, they were still bundled up in a ball. I did not undo the ball to photograph the condition. From what I understand, from when they were photographed at the crime lab, a tear was seen in the gloves.
So when you picked up the gloves, they were tangled up in one bundle, as you said.
They were all together in a ball.
And when you got them back, they had already been kind of cut out and kind of expanded for the processing.
They had been processed at the crime lab.
Okay. So you didn't ever have a chance to document kind of the condition of the gloves.
I did not.
But you are aware that there were 3 of them that came back?
I did not know how many gloves were in the bundle when I collected it.
But you are aware that 3 of them came back?
Correct.
Okay. I want to talk to you about DNA collection. The same day that you collected DNA from multiple individuals, is that right?
The only swabs that I did was on Jose.
So you didn't collect the swabs for the other individuals being tested?
No.
Okay. Are you aware of who collected those swabs?
I know I didn't collect them.
When you went to collect Mr. Ibarra's DNA, you first tried buccal swabs?
Yes.
Okay. I learned today that they're pronounced buccal, not buccal. But those are the inside of the cheek?
Correct.
Okay. And then you also did swabs around the fingernail area?
Correct.
And Ms. Stewart said that was because the fingernails were too short to be cut. Is that right?
They were too short to be cut.
Okay. And did you send those swabbings off to the lab as well?
Those, I would have to see my evidence sheet to see if they were sent off.
So you're not sure if they were sent off?
They were not tested.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. So you never got them back from the lab with a result on them?
I know they were not tested.
But you just don't know if you sent them off to be tested?
I couldn't tell you without looking at the evidence sheet.
I want to talk briefly about what you found in Diego's gray bag. You showed us a picture of cloth gloves that were in the bag.
Correct.
And it's a little hard to tell, but you would agree with me that those are not from the same pair of gloves.
No, they're 2 different style gloves.
Do they still comprise a left and a right hand, to your knowledge?
One of them is a cloth hand, a cloth glove. It's kind of like these.
Okay.
It could be on the right or the left hand.
Okay. But you never found the other 2 matching gloves that would have completed those 2 sets throughout your investigation?
Those were the only 2 gloves in the bag.
And when you're looking at items for blood, how do you do that?
Visual inspection.
Did you use any sort of, infrared lighting to see if blood was apparent on these gloves?
No, it was just visual inspection.
It was just visual inspection? Did you consider using any sort of specialized lighting or chemicals to see if there was blood on those gloves?
I can just tell you I didn't.
Okay.
I just looked at the gloves.
And those gloves were not sent off to the lab?
No.
Just a moment. of your testimony, Mr. Saunders, you said that no items collected from Diego had blood. But just to clarify, the black Adidas hat was collected from Diego. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can tell you nothing in the bag that I looked through had blood that I was able to see.
Understood. Nothing else.
Just briefly, and if you felt like you needed to do more of an examination of those items from Diego's backpack, you could have sent them off, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Was there anything that you saw in there, in that backpack, that made you think there was blood on any of those items?
No, there was nothing that would indicate there was blood on anything in that backpack.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Beck?
No, Your Honor.
Can he be excused?
Yes, sir.
You're excused.
All right, thank you.
You call your next witness.
Detective Preston Norris.